This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're going to examine a couple of sugyas in Hilchos Chanukah, al pi Lomdus, and hopefully will come out some interesting ideas and concepts in Hilchos Chanukah. We begin with a machlokes. We know that the sugya of Hilchos Chanukah, there's no Masechta for Chanukah, and there are only a few blot of halachas that are interspersed in the second parak of Masechta Shabbos in Bameh Madlikin. So one of the very first sugyas in Bameh Madlikin that discusses Hilchos Chanukah is the sugya of kavsa zakakla or kavsa ein zakakla, which means if the you light the menorah and you put enough oil to last the shiur for the half hour, and it goes out immediately, or let's say even if it doesn't go out, but it's very shvach, it's very weak, it's very light. Do you need to relight the menorah if it goes out? What's the halacha? Kavsa zakakla or kavsa ein zakakla? It's a machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Chizda.
Just blinked.
What?
And bleeped the noise.
What did?
The camera.
Okay. We're good. I think so. So there's a machlokes. Do we say kavsa zakakla or do we say kavsa ein zakakla? That's the machlokes. Rav Huna says psilos v'shmanim v'shamar chalom ein madlikim b'hem Shabbos ein madlikim b'hem b'Chanukah, because Rav Huna holds kavsa zakakla. If the menorah goes out, you must relight it. On the other hand, Rav Chizda holds kavsa ein zakakla. L'maisa, what do we hold? Anybody know? We hold kavsa ein zakakla. We hold that if the menorah goes out, you do not have to relight it. There's no obligation. As long as you made the attempt to light it, and it burned, so if it went out immediately, it's fine. You're not obligated to relight it. That's the halacha, kavsa ein zakakla. Okay, that's the sugya on daf chaf amud aleph and chaf aleph amud aleph and chaf aleph amud beis. We go on to daf chaf gimel, and the Gemara gives a very interesting halacha. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna, also Rav Huna, Chatzar sheyesh la beis psachim, a courtyard that has two openings. Tzricha shtei neiros, you need to light in two places. So if you have a courtyard, there's one opening on one side on Peninsula Boulevard, one opening on Oakland Avenue. Let's say you have a corner house, basically corner house, and you have one window or one door on one side of the street, one window on another side of the street. Well, shul doesn't have, technically you don't light on the outside of a shul. Or actually, you don't light on the outside of a shul. But if you have a house, so it has two openings, so Rav Huna says you have to light in both places. V'amar Rava said, Loi amron ela mishtei ruchos, that's only if it has two openings on two different sides. Ava miruach achas loi, but on one side you don't have to. So Gemara has a kasha. What do we worry about? If we're worried about the chashash of the world's going to see that someone didn't light. So even if it's on the same side, people don't know it's one home. People might think it's two separate homes. You should have to light in every single window. Elamai, we're worried about the chashash of that particular city that they know that this is one residence. So then, even on two separate sides, you shouldn't have to light twice because they know it's one residence. So Gemara says we're worried about the chshad of that city, but sometimes the person is only passing by one side, he's not passing by the other side, and he's going to say that just like he didn't light here, he probably didn't light there as well. And therefore, mipnei hachshad, you need to light in both places. That's the Gemara on daf chav gimel amud aleph. Okay. So we come to the Beis Halevi. The Beis Halevi, in the end of his commentary to Chumash, he wrote something called Kuntras Chanukah, that I'm sure everybody is familiar with, or at least should be familiar with. Can I have a sheet? Is there another sheet here? Yeah, there enough. The Beis Halevi, he has a question. If you look in this piece, the piece that has the lines in it, the Beis Halevi says like this: V'hinei l'chayra kasha. You ready for the kasha? The kasha is very pashut. If we're worried of chshad, if we're worried that people, when it comes to Ner Chanukah, they're eyeing you, they're looking at you. Did the guy light properly? Did the guy not light properly? And if you have a home that has two sides, you have to light in both, because maybe a guy will only pass by one side and he won't see the Ner Chanukah on this side. So even according to the man, the Amar Kavsa Ein Zakaklav, that if the menorah goes out, you don't have to relight it. You should have to relight it, because so the person the onlooker doesn't know you lit it and it went out. All he sees is an empty menorah, and he's going to suspect you that you didn't light the menorah. Meaning it's a stira. According to the sugya on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, that we're worried about chshad by Ner Chanukah, we should worry about chshad. Very nice, kavsa, ein zakakla. Fine, ein zakakla midin Ner Chanukah, but you should have to relight it because of the chshad. That's the kasha of the Beis Halevi.
Lit the whole night anyway, in case anybody walks by at any point.
Yeah, but we're assuming by this man.
No, right. I mean, in the times of the Gemara, there was only a half hour that you could light, not before and not after.
Why is this the mitzvah we care so much about what other people think is legal?
Well, we're going to get, that will be the second subject. Okay. In other words, there are other areas of halacha that we also care about. For example, you're not allowed to pass by a shul during the Zman Tefillah. You're not allowed to pass by a shul and not go in, because somebody will suspect that you're not davening. So we find other areas in halacha where we're suspicious of people, and you have to do things. In other words, you're walking by a shul, you already davened, you must go in, because otherwise someone's going to suspect you that you didn't daven. Now, the Gemara Brachas is very lenient about it. The Gemara says that if there's another shul in the city, then you don't have to go in, because the person will say he probably davened elsewhere. Now, so why don't we say the same thing by Chanukah? Why don't we say if there are two doors, why doesn't the guy daven l'kavskos? He probably lit on the other side. So that's going to be the next subject we're going to discuss. But first things first, the kasha of the Brisker Rav is, why do we, even according to the man the Amar, kavsa ein zakakla, what should we do? We should relight it. Says the Beis Halevi.
It's by any mitzvah.
Technically, we do.
You have to build a sukkah on every side of your house. Somebody think you don't have a sukkah. I'm saying,
Like Shabbos candles.
yeah, we say this by every
Shabbos
mitzvah.
candles you're lighting for yourself inside of the house. There's a whole sugya about that. So you're not doing it for outside.
You're not doing sukkah for outside. You're doing sukkah for yourself too.
He's saying that no one needs to know.
No, that the difference between sukkah, in other words, let's say I made a sukkah on one side, or I should make another sukkah on another side. The answer is the guy will say he went to his in-laws for Yom Tov. So why not by Chanukah?
He's at somebody else. He's lighting over there.
Okay, so
Same thing with the shul. He's davening over there.
So I would say the mitzvah of the menorah is on the house. The house has to have a menorah. The house doesn't have to have a sukkah. The individual has to have a sukkah. So if a guy sees you eating out of the sukkah in a chanami, that's chshad. Let's say a guy's sick, so you're pater from sukkah. But somebody might not know that. Maybe we taka do say chshad. But here the house has to have a menorah. Look in the Beis Halevi. B'nei l'chayra kasha lahachman da amar desvirlei kavsa ein zakakla ma'ishna mehadam rinan chatzar sheyesh la shnei psachim tzricha shtei neiros mishum chshada dezimnin dechalfi b'hai v'lei chalfi b'hai. Sometimes somebody will pass by one, not pass by the other. V'amrina, we're going to say ki hechi de b'hai pischa lo yadlik b'hi nami lo yadlik. Why don't we say just like the guy's going to say, just like he didn't light in this entrance, he didn't light in the other entrance. V'im kain. Gam bekava lagamri yitzarch lahadlik mishum chshada. If so, even if it extinguished completely, you should have to relight it because of chshad. Says the Beis Halevi, maybe you'll say, ein chanami. The din of kavsa ein zakakla is you don't have to relight it, because kavsa ein zakakla, kavsa zakakla is talking about two cases. One case is it gets very, very faint. So kavsa zakakla says you have to relight it completely. It has to burn strong for the half hour. And kavsa ein zakakla says no. Once it burns strong for a minute, it's okay if it burns faint for the rest of the time. So maybe the din of chshad doesn't apply, because you know what we're talking about over here? We're talking about a case where it's still burning, but it's burning very faintly. So there's no chshad, because somebody sees that it's still burning. The person sees that the guy made an attempt to light the menorah. Maybe the din of ein zakakla is only if it's still burning, but if it's burning faintly. But if it completely extinguished, then ein chanami you have to light it ne'ach shad. Look in the Beis Halevi. The Beis Halevi wants to suggest that maybe we're talking about a case, you know why kavsa ein zakakla? Because it's still burning faintly. So the man da amar zakakla holds you have to relight it completely, and the man da amar ein zakakla says you don't have to relight it. Chshad, there's no chshad because it's still burning a little bit. Ubevadai de ein makam loymar, says the Beis Halevi, don't say tahach kavsa ein zakakla ayri rak bahaya haner chashach L'chuda. Maybe the din that you don't have to relight is only if it's faint. But it's still recognizable that it was burning before. Certainly kavsa includes even if it goes out completely. And nevertheless, Rav Chizda holds you don't have to relight it. Okay, so the Beis Halevi concludes as follows. The Beis Halevi says, really we hold kavsa ein zakakla. Eich shad, ein echanami. You have to relight it. But we paskin ein zakakla. No, that just means ein zakakla midin ner Chanukah. But you still have to light it, mimnei shad. The machlokes of zakakla ein zakakla is, does the mitzvah of ner Chanukah demand that you relight it? So we paskin it doesn't. But you still have to relight it because of suspicion. Says the Beis Halevi, l'chayra hayanir de be'emes kulei alma moidim tetzarch lahadlika mishum chshada v'loi pligi hacha rak be'ikar chiyav ha-mitzvah. To Rav Huna svirolei, that mitzad ha-mitzvah, you have to go back and relight it, because he holds that was the takana. Now you'll say, so what's the nafkamina? Everybody holds you have to relight it. Right? The nafkamina is, if it's faint. So the man damar kavsa zakakla holds, you have to relight it. And the man damar ein zakakla holds, you don't have to relight it because there's no chshad. But ein echanami, if it goes out completely, everybody holds you have to relight it. Rav Huna holds you have to relight it because of the ikar din mitzvah ner Chanukah. And Rav Chizda holds you have to relight it in chshad. So Rav Huna would hold, when the light is burning, if it's just faint, you have to fix it. Even though there's no chshad, the kol ha'over rayehu, anyone who passes by will see it. U'makar shahayadalik mikvar, knows that it was burning before. Mikamaka mechuyev l'saknoi mishum ikar ha'mitzvah. V'chashinan shema yivshaz. Rav Chizda svirulei, that the ikar mitzvah you don't have, and there's no chshad because people see that it's faint. So the conclusion of the Brisker Rav, the conclusion of Beis Halevi, is that if it goes out completely, everyone holds you have to relight it. Rav Huna holds you have to relight it because zakakla, and Rav Chizda holds you have to relight it mimnei chshad. And if it's faint, Rav Huna holds you have to relight it because of zakakla, and Rav Chizda says you don't have to relight it, there's no chshad. That's basically the end of the Beis Halevi. Rav Chaim Pinchas Sheinberg asks that this is a pella to say, because we know we paskin kavsa ein zakakla. But it comes out that if the menorah goes out, you do have to relight it. Why? Because of chshad. Why is this not brought down in Shulchan Aruch anywhere? That even though we hold if the menorah goes out, you don't have to relight it, but you have to relight it anyway because of suspicion. Why isn't this brought down anywhere? If the Beis Halevi is correct, that a menorah that goes out, you have to relight because of chshad, why is it not brought down the halacha that if it goes out, you have to relight it because of chshad? So you ever hear, anyone here learn in Torah? The Rav Sheinberg has something called Mishmeres Chaim, his famous Mishmer Shailas, that he would pose to the Beis Medrash, like Thursday night, a Lomdus Shakasha, and the Talmidim would be mafalpel about the tarets. They would have to come up with their own creative tarets. So Rav Sheinberg asks on the Beis Halevi that it would seem rather difficult to say that all the poskim say, Paskin halacha kavsa ein zakukla, that you don't have to relight it, and nobody says, but you have to relight it anyway, mimnei chshad. So Rav Sheinberg wants to say you don't have to relight it mibnei chshad. But we know if you have two entrances, you have to light a second menorah mibnei chshad. So why, if the menorah goes out, do you not have to relight it mibnei chshad? So a typical mishmar shaila would be the greatness of the mishmar shaila. The purpose of the mishmar shaila is you don't have to know any other information. There's no bekias involved. All you have to know is the case at hand, and you have to be able to split hairs and explain why there's a difference. When there are two doors, we are suspicious, and if you have one menorah and it lit and it went out, we're not suspicious.
So it's pretty obvious, no?
See, the assumption is that you can see the menorah and that it's not lit. So you see if there's a menorah there, the guy must have lit.
At all, on the other end.
No, there's no a difference. In other words, the way it looks like the guy didn't light. It looks like the guy didn't light the menorah. What would the difference be? Why, if you have two doors, you must light in the second door, but if you have a menorah that burned and it went out, and people are going to suspect that you didn't light the menorah, you don't have to light the menorah. The menorah in the window.
You assume the guy sees it.
Yeah. No, 1 second.
It's not lit.
If you have one door, it's not going to help to put a menorah on the second door. You have to light in the second door.
I think because here the guy did his ishtadlus. It went out. The other, you didn't make sure to cover all your base. You didn't make sure to cover door 1 and door 2.
No, I think
you have to do that. So here, you're Mekayim your mitzvah. You lit. It went out. It was nothing to do with you. You did what you were supposed to do.
There's an unforeseen circumstance.
Yeah.
When there's an unforeseen circumstance, the Chachamim are not going to require, but why not? But they're going to be suspicious of you.
Yeah, but then you can walk around with all suspicious.
When it goes out.
They're not going to be mechayev you to
You
do
could say
something.
The same thing, maybe somebody saw it before it went out. You could say chashash that. Maybe somebody saw it before it went out. So they saw it.
By Hanukkah, the main mitzvah, why we like...
Maybe somebody's going to pass. Maybe the guy who's walking will go turn the corner.
No, but by
He's
Hanukkah...
saying, what is what I was going to ask? He's about this because the mitzvah is pursuing Nisa.
Right.
So that's why the whole Shiloh shouldn't be to me. I don't like anyway.
But we're suspicious that maybe a guy didn't light the menorah. So Mali, he didn't light in this entrance, or Mali, he didn't light in this window at all. If anything, by the way, there should be a bigger suspicion if the menorah went out. Why? Here the guy has 2 entrances. The guy's walking by. He knows he has another entrance. But he says, if he didn't light here, he probably didn't light there. Why? Why are you being danim l'kav choiva? But here a guy has 1 menorah, and I don't see anything. So it's a lot, very suspicious. Why didn't this guy light? The other guy, you should be danim l'kav schus, he lit in the other window. Here, I'm looking in his 1 window, and he didn't light.
Well, even if it went out, chances are there are other flames that maybe still be lit. It's just one of the candles.
Assume it's the first.
No, first night, or they all went out. So no, 1 second. So Moshe is saying that the din of chshad can't be mechayev you if in a circumstance where you already made an attempt. So now it's an in other words, we're not going to be mechayev you if it's an unforeseen circumstance.
You did what you're supposed to
Meaning
do.
the same thing. By the 2 doors.
By the door you didn't do it.
2 doors. You have to do whatever you can to make sure that no one has a shot on you. Here you lit, and it went out.
Since I already did something, we're not gonna overextend you. So let me tell you what Rav Sheinberg says. Rav Sheinberg splits it like this. He said, chashad cannot be mechayev you in the menorah. Chashad could say, once you are chayev in the menorah, we could extend the chiyuv to other locations. Chashad is only a concern. It's not able to be mechayev you in the first place. It's only able to extend your chiyuv. So in the case where I have a window and I'm lighting, I'm chayev, chashad says, continue the chiyuv and light over here as well. Chashad can only extend the chiyuv. But in the case where a person lit the menorah, and now it went out, and now we say, light again. What do you mean light again? Chashad can't be mechayev me to light a menorah. That's his chilak. Okay, chshad cannot create a new chiyuv. Chshad can only extend the original chiyuv. That's the first offering for today. We're going to get to it now. Next, here's the next case. Okay, now that's the first subject. Second subject is what Kali was asking about. Let us look in the. So we can get to everything today. Okay, check this out. Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef. 3 topics. Beis Yosef. You ready? Okay. This is the Beis Yosef on the tour. Because all the guys are asking, that everything in halacha, we're always worried. Why don't we say, mechves? You know? What's halacha if somebody has 3 arms? How many arms do you have to put tefillin on? Right? 2 left arms. I don't know, maybe you have to put on both. So why don't we say that, you should, you could make up a lot of cases. You should put on tefillin twice, because maybe you have a 3rd arm or something. You have 2 heads, you have to wear 2 pairs. What do you say, Cheskel? Someone has 2 heads, he has to put on 2 pairs of tefillin?
Well, the question is if they're twins. Right, if they're...
But then there are 2 different people, and each one has the chiyuv.
Well, we only have
Not
one left hand. Let's say there's only one left hand.
In other words, when are we suspicious of somebody? Let's say the shul has 3 minyanim, you have to daven on all of them?
At least come to one.
At least come to one. Halevi.
You know? So look in the Beis Yosef. This is Ois Ches. This is going on the halacha that a chatzar that has 2 openings, you have to light the menorah in each one. Menorah beperek b'amem adlikin on daf chav gimel because of aran u'mistabra the kivon she'enoi madlik ela mishum chshada. Now, do you make a bracha in both? No, chshad is not going to make you make a bracha. Yeah, chshad is not going to make you make a bracha. Yeah. Vim Taimar, Frak the Beis Yosef, this is Kalev's Kasha. The Gemara says in Brachos, on Daf Ches Amud Beis, and on Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, Asur laver achore beis hakneses b'shah shatzir mispahan. You're now to pass by a shul during the time of minyan. Why? Because people are going to suspect that what? That you're not going in to pray. But says the Gemara, that's only if the shul doesn't have another door. But if the shul has another door, we're not worried people are going to suspect you. They'll say you're not going in this door, you're going in the other door. So we see whenever there's an option that people could possibly be danu l'kavschus, we assume people will be danu l'kavschus. So why don't we say the same thing by Menorah? There are two entrances. Why do we say that you have to light in the other entrance? Because the guy's going to say, if you didn't light in this one, you probably didn't light in this one. We know by tefillah, a guy would say that if you're not entering the shul in this entrance, you're probably entering the other entrance. So why don't we say the same thing by Ner Chanukah? That an onlooker would say, if you're not lighting here, you're probably lighting there. Why are we so pessimistic by Ner Chanukah, and we're optimistic when it comes to a shul? Why when it comes to shul, we're optimistic? We say, what?
Do both at the same time.
What do you mean?
The menorahs, you can light them both at the same time. The shul, I can't go both doors at the same time.
Okay, good. So again, the guy's walking by the shul, and so an onlooker says, what? If he's not going in this door, I'm sure he'll be going in the other door when he turns the corner. So when it comes to going to shul, we're dan a shul goer l'kavschus, that he'll probably enter in another, he'll probably come into another, right? But that's the halacha. That if a shul only has one door, you can't walk by it at the time of minyan, even if you're ready to daven, someone's going to be suspicious you're not davening. But if you have another entrance, an onlooker would say he's probably going to enter in the other entrance. So why by Ner Chanukah are we so pessimistic that if there are two windows, we say light in both, because an onlooker will say, if you missed this one, you probably didn't.
He knows if there's two entrances. Maybe by the guy's house, he doesn't know there's another window there.
No, we're talking, the Gemara says, we're talking about people of the city who know there's another entrance, but they're only passing by one, and they're going to say, if you didn't light here, you probably didn't light there.
This is the whole mitzvah for Shema Nisa, so you want to see it. It's more of outgoingness to show the mitzvah.
Yeah, but that's what we always
So
say
you don't have to
before.
go out
We're
and
talking
go
about the being
down
Mekayim, the mitzvah of lighting, then the second.
So what you say? So you see a split? No, we're talking about a guy, he's only walking on the avenue, he's not walking on the street, and he says...
You can't be one or the other. It has to be both at the same time.
Oh. So maybe you want to say like this. Here's one split. Maybe we're going to come back to your split in a minute. The Beis Yosef says that nobody... We're by Ner Chanukah, it's very possible someone's not going to light. Maybe a guy's not going to light because it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan and it's not such a davar chamor. So somebody might be suspicious the guy's not lighting, but not davening with the minyan. If you're not davening with the minyan, you're porik ol malchus shamayim. Nobody would ever be when it comes to nobody would really suspect another Jew who not to daven with the minyan. Unless there's really only one door. But if there are two doors, in other words, we're much more reluctant. When it comes to davening with the minyan, we would sooner be dan l'kavschus, because such a breach in Jewish practice not to daven with the minyan, that nobody would be dan someone l'kavchoiva unless there's no alternative. That's the first answer of the Beis Yosef.
It's such the mitzvah, you could say also because commonality, meaning davening every day, so you know the guy must daven. Where a menorah you're only doing once a year.
I mean, the guy might forget.
Same thing when we say if we have suffix, I forgot to say Mashur Ren Geshem. It depends. If it's in the first after a certain amount of time, you're used to doing the.
You're saying by shul, it's more likely
you're davening 3 times a day, so it's habitual. But by menorah, it's one.
So the guy might forget. The guy might forget.
The guy forgot to light his menorah.
Listen to the second answer, basically. So the first answer is that nobody would suspect another Jew of not davening with him. The second answer is, look, bottom line is, it costs money to buy a menorah, to light the menorah. Everything's overpriced. They sell the regular oil, which costs $4 a bottle. Now it's like triple the price. So basically, it's very expensive, and therefore we're more likely to suspect that somebody would not light the menorah. Okay, that's the kasha and the answers of the Beis Yosef. Comes the Shvus Yaakov. Another sheet, next sheet. The Shvus Yaakov says in a tshuva. Here, give me the Shvus, one more. The Shvus Yaakov says in a tshuva, in tshuva memches. I want to show you where it is. Here, look where I'm pointing. Is in Tshuva Memches. Again, the kasha is why by davening we don't really suspect anybody of not davening with the meal unless there's only one door, and by Ner Chanukah it's more likely. Look where I'm pointing in Tshuva Memches. V'oid nira loymar. You see? Look where I'm pointing.
Right here. He's got the underline.
Oh, you got my sheet.
Yeah, I got your sheet.
Very good. V'oid nira l'chalik. Okay, good. That if you, by the way, if you look in the Gemara on Daf Chav Gimel by Chshad, at the end of the sugya, the Gemara asks, "Uminot teimra de chashina l'chshad." Who says we're suspicious for chshad? We're worried about chshad. And the Gemara brings a raya, a brisa by Peah, that there are 4 reasons why you have to put Peah at the edge of your field, so that people don't suspect that you didn't leave Peah. So the Chacham Tzvi asks, there are many sugyas in Shas about chshad, and the Gemara never asks, and how do you know we're worried about chshad? For example, by passing by a shul, when the Gemara says you're not allowed to pass by a shul at the time of minyan, the Gemara doesn't say, and how do I know we're worried about chshad? The Gemara in Shas, whenever it talks about chshad, it never asks, what's the source we're worried about chshad? Why davka by Ner Menorah does the Gemara say, and who says, what's the source we're worried about chshad? So the Shvus Yaakov says, let me explain to you this Gemara. There's an extra special reason, by regular mitzvahs, we don't have to explain why we're worried about chshad. We're worried about chshad because it's something to be suspicious of. Because you're walking by a shul and it's the only entrance and it's minyan time. Why aren't you davening with the minyan? But by Ner Chanukah, there's another door here. So really, technically, we should be dan the guy l'kav zchus. So why are we not dan the guy l'kav zchus? There's a special reason why people are suspicious here. Because there's another sugya Ner Chanukah. Does anybody remember?
There's also the distinction that
Yeah.
Ner's Chanukah, it's an extended zman. It's not.
No, it's
We're
the
assuming
time of
everyone
Gimel.
everyone lit at the same time.
Oh, everyone. Yeah.
Right?
But then why is this guy walking by? He should be home lighting the night.
He's running home to light menorah.
Well,
How come the guy?
no, the guy's by the shul is walking by the shul. By the menorah, he just has 2 entrances and he's only lighting in
Why
one.
the guy sees? How
Why
come
there
he's
any
not home
passerbys?
lighting? Fine, he lives across the street. He's looking out his window. He doesn't have to be walking.
Right, okay.
You mean, who's this passerby?
Yeah.
Right.
He's running
If
home
you
to
have
light.
certain time, 30 minutes.
A woman, I don't know.
He's like, Jew doesn't like menorah.
Maybe that's an interesting thing. Maybe it's a guy.
No,
No?
it could be the Jew
Oh,
who lives
we
across the
wouldn't
street sees the window. He
We wouldn't
just
be-
lit.
we
He
wouldn't
looks
have-
across the street.
He's gonna know you need a light in both entrances.
He's your Jewish
Okay.
neighbor. He looks if you have. You know,
The Gemara on Daf Chav Gimel, right before the sugya of chshad, Amar Reb Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav Hamadlik Ner Shel Chanukah Tzarich Levarich. For Reb Yirmiyah Amar Haroya Ner Shel Chanukah Tzarich Levarich. So Amar Rabbi Huda, on the first day, the Roya makes 2 brachos, and the Madlik makes 3 brachos. On the second day, the Roya makes 1 bracha, and the Madlik makes 2. In other words, we know that let's say somebody doesn't light the menorah, he's homeless. I remember when I was in Australia, the first day they took me to near the water. It was winter time there, don't worry. And there was a lady there in a truck, smaller than a pickup truck. She lived in her truck. She had like this shelf that pulled out. She had cans. She had like this little bed, and the lady lived in her truck. So someone who's homeless can't light the menorah. So what do you do?
What about trouble?
Yecheska wants to know, what do you do if someone is homeless,
look,
right?
you go find
want to know, I could tell, I could see by the, right? What?
You say an extra bracha.
So yes, if you have a home, you say an extra bracha. You know what the bracha is? Lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. But if you're homeless, then you could actually look at someone lighting the menorah, and on the first night make shasa nisam labayseinu and make a shachiyanu. But you can't make lahadlik because you're not lighting. So what do we learn from here? That even if you're not lighting the menorah, you could still do the mitzvah as a second class, which is what? Looking at the menorah and make shasa nisam and shachiyanu. The reason we're so suspicious by Ner Chanukah is because you have a second best option where you could save yourself, forget about saving the money, because you have a second option, and that is instead of lighting, you could look and get some of the mitzvah. So the reason why, in general, we're only worried when it's very conclusive that you're doing something wrong, when there's one entrance to the shul. But by Ner Chanukah, there's a lot of room for suspicion because you could cop out of the mitzvah by looking at somebody else. So the Gemara wants to know, how do I know we're choishesh for chshad in a situation where really it's very likely you did the mitzvah because there's another entrance, you probably did, but because there's a possibility of doing the mitzvah and copping out of the mitzvah, we suspect you didn't do it. We bring a raya from Peah. Because by Peah, you could take off peah.
And you have to leave it at the corner.
He says, let's like this. He says, if there's no reyes, we're not choshesh for chshad, and we're going to be danu lekav schus. But by ner Chanukah cheshina l'chshada sheyachshdu loy she'asa mitzvah rak shalei yisam min ha'mivchar kiven the karmel and ha'amad like mevarach b'yom rishon gimel brachos. That's why we ask umina temer the cheshina l'chshada in such a case. So we bring a raya from peah. What's the raya from peah? We're worried that if somebody sees that you didn't take off peah, maybe you took off peah. We know the ikar mitzvah of peah is to take it min hakama while it's standing. They're going to say, no, you're going to do it later when it's bundled. It's b'diavad to take off peah when it's bundled. L'chadchila you're supposed to take off peah when it's bekama. But b'diavad you could do it after it's cut and it's bundled. So the onlooker might say, you know what, maybe the guy's copping out and doing the mitzvah in a b'diavadika fashion. So this is a new level of chshad. Typically in Shas, we're going to be danyu l'kaschus unless it's very suspicious. But how do I know where it's not suspicious? I'm choshid in a situation where there's a possibility of doing the mitzvah in a secondary way. That we bring a raya from peah from. Okay? That's the second offering for today. Last offering. Ready? Another page.
I think also you have the reason that
What do
we
you
want a second menorah on the corner is
sure.
because you want someone else to be able to get the mitzvah by having an opportunity to get a mitzvah.
I mean, that's why...
That it's not a chashad, it's that you're giving up an opportunity to get more schusim by having other people see your second menorah.
You mean by davening... I have to go in, but I'm not going to be doing anything anyway because it's already daven. So we don't make you go in. By the menorah, we'll make you do it because there's a tayelas of doing it.
Because someone else could see.
I mean, that's a new answer.
Yeah,
that's a new answer.
It's like.
But I have a question. The guy who lights the menorah in the second window is not making a bracha. Because he's not really doing it for the mitzvah. The onlooker, could he make a bracha on it? But it's not really a menorah, it's only a...
Well, for him it is. He sees the...
But it wasn't lit. It wasn't lit.
He's only making just an isim.
I have a question. What if a guy lights the menorah in your house? So you're not yotzei. Could the onlooker make a shas anisim?
Well, how does the onlooker know?
I'm asking you. Did he lose it?
How do you know it was done properly? And that, but still, we would say if it's a menorah, you can make the bracha.
But there's not a menorah.
But it's a menorah.
It was lit.
You the Rosh Hashanah, no one really lights the menorah properly, so it doesn't. Everybody you could always.
No, let's say someone like
they were here at the Shiur. Okay, last point. The most famous Gemara in Bameh Madlikin is Tan Rabbanan Mitzvahs Chanukah Ner Shubeisai. The Iker mitzvah is one candle for the whole house. Mahadrin Ner L'Chalech V'Echad. Mahadrin, every person lights one candle. Mahadrin, then it's machlokes rishonim, but we paskin everyone goes up. Okay, so the three levels of being yotzei the mitzvah. Amazingly, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch says, how do you light the menorah? On the first night you light one, on the second night everyone lights two, third night three, fourth night four. Shulchan Aruch doesn't say the ikar mitzvah, and he doesn't say mahadrin. He only says mahadrin min mahadrin. Why doesn't he give you the other two options? It is not brought in the halacha the two basic options of lighting the menorah. Why not? What if somebody's poor? What if somebody can't afford it? What if somebody doesn't want to be mahadrin? You're not obligated to be mahadrin. You're obligated to be mahadrin. The definition of mahadrin is you want to do hiddur. You don't have to do it, so why would the Shulchan Aruch only cite the third and highest madrega? It's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch. So this is a question that the Avi Ezri, that Reb Shach, discusses in his Sefer, but it's not available on my edition of Yitzhak Chachma. This is Reb Shach's kasha on the Shulchan Aruch.
What's that second option? First option?
The first option is one candle for the whole house. Yeah. Everyone in the house lights one. Yeah. That's the second option. Fine. Everyone lights. Okay. So Reb Shach says, don't say it doesn't make an nafkamina, because at the end of the day we should all try to do mahadrin, because it makes a very big nafkamina. What nafkamina would it make? Rabbi Akiva Eiger, the famous Rabbi Akiva Eiger. What if on the seventh night of Chanukah somebody lit 6 candles? What if this is the seventh night of Chanukah, you only lit 6 candles? And then you say, oh, it's the 7th night, so I light a 7th candle. Do I make another bracha? What does it depend on? Do you make a bracha on hiddur? So the Shulchan Aruch should tell me that this is a hiddur. The Shulchan Aruch should say there's a hiddur because it's not the Iker Mitzvah. You already did the Iker Mitzvah, and you don't make a bracha on hiddur. The Shulchan Aruch just says it as if there's only one option to light the menorah, and that is mahajim and amahajim. It doesn't even, as if you're mechuyev to do mahajim and amahajim. This is Reb Shach's kasha. So in Rav Gifter has a sefer on the Moyadim called Perkei Moyed, and he wrote a letter to Reb Shach. If you look on the bottom, I don't have a mark, but you should be able to get this one. The Perek Daled Mechanika Halacha Aleph. He says, Hadras Go'inoi asked on the Mechaber, who does not mention the Iker Mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, Mitzvahs Ner Chanukah, Mitzvahs Chanukah, Ner Ishu Beisai. V'hashar Mishum Hiddur. And the nafka, now, and it's a very big nafka. Let's say a guy says, you go into a guy's house, there's one candle for the whole house. You say, Russia, what are you doing? Don't you know you have to light, you're supposed to mahajim and hamad? I don't want to. You see the prices of oil these days? I'm going to light one candle for my whole house. Not my son, not my daughter. That's it. We're going to save. Could you force him to do it? You can't force him. Could Bezin come and take a club and smash him over the head? No. But what if a guy, you go to his house, you go to a Jew's house, and the guy's not lighting the menorah? Is he a good guy? No. Could Bezin come and take a baseball bat and hit him on the head and say, light the menorah? Yeah, of course. No. Yeah, you could. So Bezin could force you to light the menorah, but Bezin can't force you to do hiddur. So the Shulchan Aruch should say the Iker Mitzvah is one candle. Says Rav Gifter, maybe the pshat is Marav a chayv or is Marav a rishus?
Rishus which became chayva.
The Gemara says rishus. We pass on as rishus. But the Rishonim say we're makabel it as a chayv. So maybe even though originally mahajim was a hiddur, but klal yisrael were makabel to do it, and therefore we're obligated to do it, and you can't do otherwise. But he says no. But still, the Shulchan Aruch should have said the option of the Iker Mitzvah, because what if someone is poor and they cannot afford it? And we know when it comes to Hiddur Mitzvah, you only have to extend yourself up to how much money do you have to spend on Hiddur Mitzvah?
1/5.
Hiddur Mitzvah is a third. You have to spend a fifth to be Mekayim a Mitzvah D'Oraisa in the first place, and then up to a third to upgrade it. Says Rav Gifter, maybe the din that Hiddur you only have to spend a third is if it's Hiddur from the pasuk of Zeh Keli V'Yanvehu. But if the Hiddur is part and parcel of the mitzvah like it is by Ner Chanukah, well, there's no such din that you only have to spend a third. You got to give up everything. And therefore the Shulchan Aruch did not write what the Iker Mitzvah is and the Mahajin is, only Mahajim and Mahajin, because today it's a Chayv, and it's a Chayv midin Chanukah, not midin Zeh Keli V'Yanvehu. And therefore there's no nafkamina. But this is an interesting question you could ask at your Chanukah party. Or you can ask your father, why doesn't the Shulchan Aruch bring down at all the three levels of the basic level, the premium level, and the platinum level? You know, the Shulchan Aruch only says the platinum level. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.